Hi, this is Andrew, and today I wanted to bring you a quick review of all the Sanctum cards from Call of the Archons and KeyForge. And if you've seen the last couple of videos like this that I put up, they've been done in conjunction with at least one of my brothers-in-law, Mark, and my other brother-in-law, Stuart, joined us for a little while on the first one. But I wanted to do one by myself just for a couple reasons. One is to try to just see if I can blitz through it quicker and still get good content in, hopefully that'll be useful to people. And the other reason is just because we all have busy lives, we have trouble syncing up, and I just wanted to get continue working my way through these so that I can eventually justify covering spoilers. So yeah, so we're gonna go ahead through Sanctum, and I figured this is a pretty good one to go through on my own because uh, I love all the houses, but Sanctum is not that flashy, and so I feel like I'm not excluding people from anything too fun comparatively. So as with the other videos, I'm going to start with uh, three questions. The first of which is when I open up a deck and it has Sanctum in it, and this is of course for Call of the Archons because those are the only decks that I've had the chance to open so far. What things am I looking to be able to get out of that house? And for me, when I see Sanctum, I think, okay, I'm hoping that I can maintain some board control with this. I'm hoping that I can have big creatures that will protect some smaller creatures with powerful effects, with things like taunt and shields. Maybe I'm hoping to have some healing effects. I'm hoping to have some amber control in the form of capture and sometimes being able to burn amber. And I'm looking for a lot of big creatures. But overall, I'm just hoping that this will give me some control over the board state. My favorite combo in Sanctum is my favorite two-card combo is Commander Remiel with Mantle of the Zealot, and I just think Commander Remiel is a great card in general. She has the ability that when she reaps, you get to use a friendly non-sanctum creature, and so if you couple her with any creature with a powerful use ability, whether it's an action, a fight ability, or a reap ability, and you can use Commander Remiel, you get the amber from her reaping, and you get to use these other creatures. So it leads to combos that just couldn't happen otherwise. And if you throw Mantle of the Zealot on her, it gives her the ability to be used as if she were in your active house, even though she's not. So this leads to circumstances where you could, for example, declare Mars, and on your Mars turn, reap with Commander Remiel and be able to use your Brobnar creature or something like that. So it just leads to very cool situations where you can get a lot done. And then the third question here is that I have is what house do you most hope to see listed next to Sanctum? And for me, if I have Sanctum, the most exciting house for me to see next to Sanctum is Dis. And the reason is that Dis has a lot of small creatures that have powerful effects that trigger even on non-Dis turns. I think of Shaffles and Succubus as really good examples of this. Along with other small creatures that have powerful effects like Toxin. Snudge is not exactly small, but still fairly small. So if I can get those creatures in a situation where they have armor and taunt next to them, things like this, then I'm going to be able to use those creatures longer. They're going to have a greater effect, and hopefully, yeah, do more work over time, being amplified sort of by the Sanctum. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in. Like we always do, we'll start with the commons. And the first common action in Sanctum is Terms of Redress. Very clever little thou shalt wear pants play on words there. Terms of Redress gains you an amber, and you choose a friendly creature to capture too. Pretty simple. We're going to see a lot of capture in Sanctum. Pretty straightforward here. And because it has the amber, even if first turn they don't have amber or whatever, it's still nice to just dump, get that amber. Okay, next is take hostages, more capture, right? We gain an amber, and then for the remainder of the turn when we fight, we capture. And this is good in Sanctum, especially because Sanctum creatures tend to have armor, and so they can be fighting without necessarily taking damage, which means they're going to be able to keep that capture longer. Next up, Shield of Justice. Gain an amber, and for the remainder of the turn, your friendly creatures can't be dealt damage. This means you can take a turn where you go whole hog fighting, take out some big stuff, don't incur any damage. If you have things that do waves of damage, this can be useful. That's not, there aren't a lot of those cards in Sanctum, so a little bit of counter synergy there, but it, as the picture depicts, this is really most useful if you have a bunch of big creatures that can go fight and get work done that way. Also, hey, look, wouldn't it be cool to see this creature in some house in the future? I don't know if it would be like a Bravnar pet or who knows. Next up we have Inspiration. So this is comparable to, the most obvious comparison that comes up would be Anger in Bravnar. Differences: Anger says ready and fight with. Inspiration says ready and use, so that means you could fight or reap. The other difference is Anger gives you an amber, Inspiration doesn't. So there are a lot of situations where Anger is a better card. Inspiration is a more flexible card. And I think that's a really good trade-off, and I think you'll notice that design pattern in more places throughout KeyForge. Anger is again, just a little bit more, if you use it to do the same thing, if you use an Anger to fight and an Inspiration to fight, the Anger's better, but the Inspiration has more flexibility built into it. And notice it said friendly, so it doesn't matter what house that creature is. And if you use this with, for example, say a Remiel, one of my favorite cards here, you reap with the Remiel, get to use a non-Sanctum creature, and then you use Inspiration on your Remiel, get to reap again, and use another non-Sanctum creature, which is very powerful. Okay. Next up, Blinding Light. Gains you an amber, you choose a house and stun each creature at the house. This is really powerful. This is really good board control. This is, I think, especially good if you're up against a house that has a lot of elusive creatures, where it's going to be a lot of work to kill them, and you get to just say, okay, well, they just get to be out of commission for a turn. It does hit your creatures at that house, so if you use this, let's say, on Sanctum, it will stun your opponent's Sanctum creatures, but also yours. So have to be aware of that. But usually I can find a really good use for it. Like I said, just very powerful. Your opponent's going to essentially waste a turn unstunning those, although, you know, it might put them in a situation where, hey, I have 4 stunned creatures in this, I only have 1 discard in my hand, but it's still a good trade-off. Anyway, but it can be really, really powerful. Okay, next up, Cleansing Wave. This one is a little tricky to understand, but hopefully you can get it. You first heal 1 damage from each creature. This includes your creatures as well as your opponents. And then after you've done that, you gain an amber for each creature that was healed that way. So this does heal your opponent's creatures. This is a case where you want to heal your opponent's creatures because you're just generating a lot of amber, and that's going to be pretty powerful. So this is most useful when, you know, because of your armor, you've been fighting, you've been taking little bits of damage, and so you can do kind of a big, well, cleansing wave, or, you know, you or your opponent played a card like Tendrils of Pain that does splash damage across a lot of creatures, and then this is a great way to follow that up and get a lot of benefit out of it. Okay. Next up, we have Hallowed Blaster. Hallowed Blaster is an artifact that when you use it, it heals 3 damage from a creature. This can be done on an opponent's creature as well if you want. You usually don't, but if you wanted to, you could. This is, I think, like, it's slow. It's usually not what I want to be spending my time on, so I usually would rather have some other card than this, but it has its use, and it's not a bad card, especially if you're in a situation where you have something like a Frankus or oh, what's her name? Wow, why can't I think of her name? I like her a lot better than Frankus. Um, the 6 power 2 armor where you fight and capture. Anyway, if you're fighting to capture, this is a good way to keep being able to do that. Next up, Protectrix. 5 power. We're into the creatures now. Protectrix is a 5 power creature, no armor, and when Protectrix reaps, she fully heals a creature. And if you do, that creature can't be dealt damage for the remainder of the turn. So let's say you have a big creature, you reap with Protectrix, you fully heal that creature, and then you can still fight with it after that, and it won't take the damage. So that's a really powerful effect. I don't see it get used a lot, but I think that's partially because people tend to focus and try to kill the Protectrix early. Next up, Sergeant Ezekiel. This is really similar to Ganger Chieftain, almost the same. It's 1 less power, right? 4, not 5, but it does have that armor. And Sergeant Ezekiel, when you play it, you can ready and fight with a neighboring creature. It does have May, so you're not required to, but it can be a really powerful effect. Next up, we have Champion Anafiel, and Champion Anafiel is really big, 6 power and an armor, and it has taunt. So this is where we get into that ability I was talking about, where Sanctum often gives us ways to protect small creatures from either here or other houses. And a well-placed Champion Anafiel can just do a lot of work and enable other cards to do a lot of work. Good thing to put next to it is a Sequus. So Sequus, or Saki, I've heard some people say. Your guess is as good as mine. 4 power, 2 armor, and when Sequus reaps, it captures 1. So that's, the 2 armor is going to give it some staying power, and being able to just reap and capture is a really nice effect. You're going to really be able to slow your opponent down there if you keep it on the board. Next, like I said, probably my favorite card overall in Sanctum, Commander Remiel. Always love to see Commander Remiel. It's weak. It's 3 power, but when it reaps, you get to use a friendly non-Sanctum creature, and that's just, I love those effects where you get to use stuff from outside of your current house. Really powerful. Okay. Next up, we have Bulwark. Bulwark is 4 power with 2 armor, and also gives 2 armor to its neighbors. So again, another one of these ways to protect things. If you put this next to an Anafiel, that Anafiel is going to have 3 power. The Anafiel has to get killed before the Bulwark through fighting, and then whatever's on the other side of the Anafiel is also protected by that taunt. And you put your opponent in a really difficult situation to get anything done through fighting. Next up, Staunch Knight. Only 4 power and 2 armor, but when it's on a flank, it has +2 power. That +2 power applies both for the purposes of dealing damage and keeping it alive. So you can get in a situation where you have, let's say, 4 or 5 damage on the Staunch Knight, and then if you play a creature to the outside of it, removing it from being on the flank, suddenly it dies. So just be aware of that, although usually you can keep track of it. Early on, I saw a lot of people getting confused, forgetting that it had that +2 power. I feel like I've seen that less and less, but just be aware and be kind to your opponent if they do miss that. It's not your responsibility to make sure they're thinking of that all the time, but certainly be just kindly explain, oh yeah, it does have +2 power, that's why it's still alive. Or that's why it did 6 damage, whatever the case may be. Raiding Knight, 4 power, again 2 armor. This is really nice for a capture creature. And this one doesn't capture as often, but when you play it, it captures 1. And there's some turns where that's better than the Sequus, because you can do that immediate capture, and that can be really helpful. But it just depends on your situation. And then, in this one, because it just has the play effect and it only captures 1, I often feel a little more free to use this to go fight as well than I would with a Sequus, where it seems like reaping is almost always the better option. And then last in the commons, we have an upgrade, Protect the Weak, very on point for Sanctum. Gains you an amber, and then the creature you attach it to gains an armor and taunt. So that armor can be really nice. The taunt can be really nice. Sometimes you might just want to throw this on your existing champion in Affiel to give it an extra armor, but sometimes this is really nice to put on a big creature like a Crump or something where you say, okay, it's now going to have more longevity because of the armor, and even though people aren't necessarily going to want to fight it and have stuff die to it, they're going to have to deal with it before they can deal with my smaller creatures. So that's it for the commons. I'm going to take a quick break and then record separately for the rest of the cards and splice it together later. So I'll be back after a quick break. Let's move on to the uncommons, and we'll start with again with actions. So we'll start with Glorious Few. Glorious Few is a card that I really underestimated early on and got burnt, and it is now on my list of things that I look for that I specifically look for if I'm playing someone with Sanctum in an Archon format. And Glorious Few says for each creature your opponent controls in excess of you, gain an amber. Feels really good to have a big board. You often do with Sanctum, but if your opponent has this, watch out. If you get too far ahead of them, they may just print a bunch of amber and hurt you that way. So watch out for this card. The Spirit's Way is an action that will destroy each creature with power 3 or higher. Sort of a almost reverse Earthshaker. And I mean that's a powerful ability. Just hey, wipe out these big creatures. And now I, as Sanctum, get a chance to start to build up my state from a more fair position. The Harder They Come, purge a creature with power 5 or higher. Really nice for getting rid of big things. Purge can be nice. Sometimes it might be better to use this on, for example, I was playing a game last night where I had a choice to use this on a damaged troll or a Bumpsy, and I went ahead and used it on the Bumpsy because I thought, well, later on, which would I be more frustrated to see come out again, and it was the Bumpsy, but it just depends on your situation. Radiant Truth, gain an amber and stun each enemy creature that's not on a flank. That's pretty good. That's actually really good, especially if they have a big board state, right? And you're in a situation where you're going to want to be using Glorious Few. If you are constantly murdering their board, maybe it's not as good, but you still get the amber. Virtuous Works, gain 3 amber. Wow, I mean that's pretty good. Sanctumony, that's wow. Who wrote that? Okay, next, this one I have a lot of fun with. Doorstep to Heaven gains you an amber, and then each player with 6 or more is reduced to 5 amber. It can just be so disappointing if you're thinking, oh hey, my opponent doesn't have shadows or anything, I can probably get away with just getting a big amber pool, and then they say, nope, I'm gonna Doorstep to Heaven, and all that amber goes away. Can be pretty powerful, and yeah, just a good way to even the scores a little bit. Important note, this amber on the card gets printed before the play effect takes effect. So that means if you're at 5 and you play this, you will go up to 6 and then drop back down to 5. And it'll be a net, nothing for you versus your opponent who, whatever they're at, they'll be at 5 or less at the end. Potion of Invulnerability gains you an amber when you play it, and it has an Omni ability. You sacrifice it. It's an artifact. You sacrifice it, and for the remainder of the turn, each friendly creature cannot be dealt damage. Compared to, oh man, what there's the action version of this, right? That's a common, and the Shield of Justice, and obviously that one takes effect immediately. That's powerful. The nice thing about the Potion of Invulnerability is you could use it on a non-Sanctum turn. So it's, I guess 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. If you can get this in like a Brobnar deck where you can do something like then use like Relentless Assault, it can be real crazy. Okay, Whispering Reliquary, kind of creepy. It was very weird looking. But Whispering Reliquary is an artifact that has an action. You can return an artifact to its owner's hand, and that can be really nice. I like to target things like Lash of Broken Dreams, uh, things that are slow to get out. Right, it's usually not that helpful to play this against things that have a constant effect, like a Speed Sigil. And I usually wouldn't want to use this against something that has an amber printed on it, because then they're going to get an amber back and still have the effect whenever they want. So, but using it on something that doesn't print an amber and has an action or omni ability where they're going to have to play it one turn and then wait until later to use it, this is a really great way to slow down your opponent. If you have Nexus and you're playing against a Whispering Reliquary, worth keeping in mind, you can put the Whispering Reliquary itself back in your opponent's hand. So, fun stuff. Oh, and if your opponent has no artifacts, but you have something that will print an amber, you can use this to get the amber again. So, just whatever, it's a pretty flexible card. Next, we have Gorm of Om, and Gorm of Om is an artifact that can be sacrificed. It has Omni sacrifice it to destroy an artifact. That's nice. And then last uncommon artifact here is Sigil of Brotherhood. Gains you an amber when you play it. And for the remainder of your turn, you can use your friendly Sanctum creatures. Important note, use, not just fight or something like that. So very flexible in what you can do. And in general, I think that's a theme we've seen so far, right? Is that the cards in Sanctum that let you use things from other houses tend to say use and are not very specific, which is great. Okay, on to creatures. We only have 5 uncommon creatures in Sanctum, and they start with Lady Maxina. 5 power, 2 armor. When you play her from your hand, you stun a creature, and as an action, you can return her to her owner's hand. Compare this to Smash in Brobnar. This is strictly better, right? You can you get your 2 shield on there, your 2 armor, which is great, and then and you have this extra action, which I don't think is super useful. Although if you've damaged her and then she has 4 damage or something like that, and you think, hey, well, I can put her back in my hand, play her again, stun something, and she's lost her damage. That can be pretty powerful. So, can be really good, and I love her art. Just really great art. I wish, I wish the mat and stuff for Sanctum was her, not the Raiding Knight, which I think is a little more boring. But yeah, she's great. And a good foil to Valder as well. Next we have Gatekeeper, which is a 5 power creature with 1 armor, and when you play it, if your opponent has 7 or more amber, capture all but 5 of it. So that's pretty nice. Can be a lot of capture there. And notice that all but 5, that sort of harkens back to the Doorstep to Heaven, as opposed to what's the one in Dis that would just capture all of it. Frankus is pretty good. 6 power, 1 armor. After an enemy creature is destroyed fighting Frankus, Frankus captures 1. It makes it a good thing to put taunt on, right? Because you want to make other things fight it, if possible. Compared to Tabris, Tabris has 2 armor and just has fight capture 1. You don't have to destroy something for the capture to happen. I think Tabris is almost always better. They're very easy to compare, right? They have very similar abilities, and I think Tabris is just a little bit better. But they're both nice, both good for controlling that amber. And then we have Grey Monk, who is only 3 power, but each friendly creature gets +1 armor. Importantly, each friendly creature includes Grey Monk. It also includes your non-Sanctum creatures. So this is pretty good. If you have 2 of these out, suddenly you're at 3 power 2 armor for each of them, and all your other stuff has 2 armor. It gets real crazy. And when Grey Monk reaps, you heal 2 damage from a creature, which could include himself, but it doesn't have to be. So pretty powerful. And then we have Shoulder Armor. The last uncommon card here. Shoulder Armor is an upgrade that gains you an amber, and while the creature it's attached to is on a flank, it gets +2 armor and +2 power, which is pretty good. All right, time has passed, and now it is time to blast through the rares. Here we're at the tail end of Sanctum, and we'll start again with actions with Clear Mind. And I think this is one, I don't know if I've seen this one in the wild, but it could definitely be quite valuable in the right situation. And it gives you 1 amber, and it unstuns all your creatures, each friendly creature. That's pretty cool, if that's the situation you're in. So, depends on the situation you're in, but if you're in that situation, that is pretty strong. Alright, charge, gain an amber, and for the remainder of the turn, each creature you play gains played, deal 2 damage to an enemy creature. So really good in that, this is 2 damage. Each creature you play, you're getting 2 damage that, isn't they aren't getting any damage back for it. And it is restricted to enemy creatures, so if you run out of enemy creatures, then the damage just fizzles. It's interesting to compare this to some of the Mars cards that let you do damage based on what you reveal from your hand. There's not really a big functional difference here. I think it's just a little more thematic for Sanctum. So anyway, sort of just very similar effect there. Okay, 1 stood against many. Gives you an amber, and you ready and fight with a friendly creature 3 times. Each time against a different enemy creature. Resolve these fights 1 at a time. So, yeah, so this lets you pick 1 of your own creatures, and then do 3 fights against different enemy creatures. Sort of like a flipped around Relentless Assault. Plus it gains you the amber. This can be good. It's if you can couple this with something like Shield of Justice or the Omni artifact that keeps your creatures, that lets your creatures not take damage. Then it's pretty strong. Otherwise, it seems very likely that at the end of this, the creature that you're using is probably dead. But you never know. Anyway, yeah, I've definitely seen it used to good effect. Pretty cool. Very thematic. Sanctum has this sort of like lone warrior thing. Next, Oath of Poverty. This one, I've had 2 of these in the same deck. It can be interesting. So you gain 1, and then you destroy each of your artifacts. Notice there's no may, or you have to destroy all your artifacts, and then you gain 2 amber for each artifact destroyed this way. So if you have this in an artifact heavy deck, this can just be a great way to print a lot of amber. And if you have an artifact that maybe you want out for a certain period of time, but you don't want to keep it out later, like you have Dis and you have Annihilation Ritual, then this could be a good way to be able to get rid of it when you think that's beneficial to you. But generally speaking, this is probably going to give you a bunch of amber very quickly. So, not a bad card. Next we have Be Gone. You choose 1, you destroy each disc creature, or you gain an amber. And I think, they could have just had an amber here and said destroy each disc creature. But it gives you some flexibility. If you have this in a deck with Dis, you might really not want to use that. you know, if you're playing at somebody who doesn't have dis, obviously it won't help you. Uh, if if you don't have dis and they do, that's kind of a pretty powerful effect. So it probably wouldn't be fair to have Amber. So that's kind of a weird way that that's worded, but I think it's fair. And yeah, it can be pretty good. Next, we have Honorable Claim, gain an Amber, and then each friendly knight creature captures one. So just more Sanctum capturing stuff. By the way, this is a good time. It'll come up again in a minute, but to count how many knight creatures Sanctum has. It's a lot. There are a couple of knights outside of Sanctum, but not a lot. And in Sanctum, there are a ton. So if we say, let's see, Call of the Archons, traits, knight. I think that should be good enough. So yeah, so there's Hebe the Huge and the Terror in Brobnar and Dis. And then we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 6, 10, 14, 15. So 15 different knights in Sanctum. It's, yeah, you're likely to get a lot of knights. Not guaranteed, but likely that you'll have knights. Okay. Mighty Lance. You deal 3 damage to a creature and then 3 damage to a neighbor of that creature. And Sanctum doesn't have a ton of direct damage, so between that and charge, and you'll see a little more here coming out, but they don't have a ton of it. Alright, and now we have Epic Quest, so this is another one that plays off of the have a lot of knights. Epic Quest is an artifact, and when you play it, you archive each friendly knight creature in play. Archive is nice because that means, you know, it's not going straight into your hand, you're going to get to draw more. And the goal, the way that this hopefully works out for you, is that maybe on the next turn you can pull those knights out of your archives into your hand, play them along with some other Sanctum cards, get up to 7 Sanctum cards, and then you can sacrifice Epic Quest and forge a key at no cost, and you've got your knights back out with, you know, with no damage or whatever. So I have seen this result in a forged key once. I think only once. It's you really have to have the right support for it, and 7 is a big number. Okay. Round table. Gain an Amber, and each friendly knight creature gets +1 power and taunt. That could potentially hurt you a little bit in that, you know, if you have something that you wanted to have protected with taunt, like a Sequus, it's going to gain taunt, and now it can be attacked. But it's a great way to protect your other stuff. So that seems like a potentially pretty powerful artifact. Let's see, how many does it have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11? Is that right? Did I count right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, well, like a clock. If there were 15, it would match the number of knights in Sanctum. All right, next we have Doom of the Martyr, 3 power, human, and when she's destroyed, you fully heal each other friendly creature, and you draw 2 cards. So, can be good. I feel like the fully heal is only sometimes good. The draw 2 cards is, you know, never going to make you sad. That's pretty good. So, yeah, she's good. Sanctum Guardian. It's a 6 power creature with an armor, so big, and it has taunt. And when it fights or reaps, you swap it with another friendly creature in your battle line. That it works out kind of weird. I mean, it's not bad, but it works out weird in that you're moving it around, and if you sometimes you had it where you wanted it. Yeah, but it's a good, you know, sometimes it's good to swap things around. It's just it's mostly interesting. Like it's definitely not like overpowered that I can think of. And yeah, but it is a big strong thing. Okay, and now we get into the Horseman. So Horseman of Pestilence is the one that is actually marked rare, and probably most people know this by now. But in case you don't, the four horsemen are a special setup in KeyForge where Horseman of Pestilence has the same chance as any other rare to appear in your deck. However, if Horseman of Pestilence appears in your deck, you automatically then get the other three added, the other three horsemen. So they don't have a random chance to appear, but if Horseman appears in your deck, you will automatically get the other three horsemen. And people have been really excited about them. They obviously combo together. Anyway, so we'll walk through them. They can be quite powerful. I don't think it's guaranteed. I think they're pretty well balanced. It can definitely be oppressive if you get to if you're already behind and they get out and you don't have the right ways to respond. So Horseman of Pestilence, I think all these are 5 power. Horseman of Pestilence has play, fight, and reap, deal 1 damage to each non-horseman creature. So you see how it works, that they want to combo together, and so it won't damage your other horseman creatures if you have them out, but it will damage every other creature on the board, including yours. But yeah, so one splash to just about everything. The next one you have is the Horseman of Famine, and also 5 power. And when Horseman of Famine is played, or fight, or reaps, you destroy the least powerful creature. This can lead to some interesting situations, because it's possible that, for Horseman of Famine to be the least powerful creature. If Horseman of Famine, if there's nothing on the board and you play Horseman of Famine, it will destroy itself. So you have to be careful about that. And if you are playing against Horsemen, that's a good thing to keep in mind. If you can only play creatures that are bigger, or just not play creatures, you put your opponent in a situation where it's going to cost them to do anything with the Horseman of Famine. Next, you have Horseman of War. This one is just a straight 5 power. It doesn't have any fight or reap abilities. It does have a play ability. On the turn that you play it, for the remainder of that turn, each friendly creature can be used as if it were in the active house, but can only fight. So really similar to a Brothers in Battle or a Follow the Leader from Rovnar. And this is going to let you have all your creatures go ahead and fight on that turn. And then lastly, we have the Horseman of Death. And when the Horseman of Death is played from your hand, you search your discard pile for other horseman creatures and pull them into your hand. So if the other ones have been out, they've done some work, you have this and they got killed, you play this and they come right back out. That's why it can be a bit oppressive. It is possible. There are a few decks out there that have 2 sets of horsemen. That is possible. I'm not aware of any that have 3, but I suppose it's possible. So if you had 2 sets of horsemen, you could get into a situation where you have, if your one Horseman of Death dies, then you can play your other one, and then the one comes back into your hand, and you think you have this infinite combo. The problem is these things aren't printing a lot of amber. They are giving you board control, but it's not necessarily game board control. So I think if you're going to keep doing this and choosing Sanctum, but you don't have anything to do with that board control, it's not necessarily as good as people immediately thought. So anyway, it's cool though. It's definitely cool, and it is good. It's just I don't think it's as crazy good as a lot of people were thinking it would be. Okay, and then next we have Lord Golgotha. Lord Golgotha has 5 power and 2 strength, or 2 armor rather. And before Lord Golgotha fights, you deal 3 damage to each neighbor of the creature the Lord Golgotha fights. This is really, really nice. That combined with the 2 armor is really nice. You can take out 1 creature, probably survive the fight. The 3 damage is done before the fight anyway, and you're dealing 3 damage to that creature's neighbors. You can very quickly do a lot of work on an enemy's board state. It's a very strong card. I like it. Next we have Hael the Merchant. And when he is out on the board, each time you play an artifact, you gain 1. I think this is basically the same as is it Valen Analyst, or maybe it's a different one, but anyway, this is a different side thematically of Sanctum, where they have this sort of merchant thing, and you have the Oath of Poverty that I think kind of fits into this. You know, hey, we're not all about fights. We have some bureaucrats and whatnot too. Anyway, so he makes it nice to play artifacts. Then we have the Vault Keeper, 4 power and 1 armor, and your amber can't be stolen. That can be very strong. I mean, this is really excellent shadows hate. You know, Mars likes to steal too. This is just fantastic. So this is one that if you could, you would want to like get it on the board, throw something next to it, especially if you're playing against the shadows, and really keep it alive to be able to cement your lead. Then we have Jehu, the bureaucrat, and Jehu is only 3 power, but after you choose Sanctum as your active house, gain 2 amber. So you can see if you have this on the board and you have your horseman going, then great. Every turn you're just automatically getting 2. Of course, you know, you might accidentally kill him, not accidentally, hopefully, but you know, you might kill him if you reap with is it Horseman of Famine. So you know, but pretty cool. Nice if you can keep them out. Then we have Numquid the Fair, and when Numquid comes out, she destroys an enemy creature, and then she keeps doing it until your enemy does not have more creatures than you. So this is always going to destroy 1 enemy creature. So that's pretty cool. Like when you play it, you can just destroy any enemy creature. Even if you were already ahead, you get to destroy 1 enemy creature, and then if you're behind on creatures, then you can keep going until you're caught up. So that's pretty awesome. And 3 power, I mean, you know, once she's on the board, she's kind of great fodder. You can just try to get rid of her, but or you know, use her 3 power however you want. But yeah, she's very strong to play out of your hand. Next we have Vimos Lightbringer, 6 power, and when it gets played, you destroy each elusive creature. Really nice if you're playing against shadows or untamed or something with some of those annoying elusive creatures. Then we have Mantle of the Zealot. It's an upgrade that gives the creature you put it on the ability to be used as if it belonged to the active house, always. And then finally, Armageddon Cloak, which gains you an amber when you play it, and then upgrades a creature to gain Hazardous 2, which means that when something else attacks it, 2 damage will be dealt to the attacker before the actual fight occurs. And also, when the creature is destroyed, fully heal this creature and destroy the Armageddon Cloak instead. This is really nice on a card like Commander Remiel or Lord Golgotha, if you have it. Some of these creatures where like it's really powerful to keep them on the board. So that's it. As you saw, we have a lot of capture. We have a lot of sort of, hey, you know, balance things out. Protection with taunt, and this kind of theme around letting you use you know, friendly creatures. Yeah, and Sanctum is I don't like, they're not it's kind of weird. They're to me, they're not exciting. They're just very stable, right? They give you a great base, and if you have them with something exciting, then they can really enable that to take off. Is how I think about it. But they are strong, and I'm happy to see them in a deck. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this and that maybe it gave you some ideas. And keep on forging those keys. Have a great day.